right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The conversation begins now. We'd like to hear your views on each and every topic that we'll talk about. It's matters, politics, and everything in between there. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Let me introduce my guest one more time, beginning from my right. Professor Tomo Jienda is here, advocate of the High Court. Asante sana for making time. Dr. Boni Alwale, former Senator Kakamega, yuko hapa pia. Thank you so much for making time.
You're welcome.
Let's get to my left here. Now we have Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Senator for Kiambu. Asante sana. And Honorable Wilson Sossion, nominated Member of Parliament. Thank you for making time as well. Let's start off with the Daily Nation. And Boni Alwale, I'll start with you on this one. Uhuru invites Azimio MPs to election talks. President Kenyatta is today set to host lawmakers supporting his handshake deal with ODM Chief Raila Odinga at a State House meeting, in which he's expected to give direction on his succession. Do you expect any surprises from this, Dr. Alwale? Or do you already know the direction is going to be?
I'm not in a position in any way to comment on that because it doesn't concern me. It is an attempt by the president, of course, to try and push his own personal agenda, which does not mean anything in Kenya. The only agenda the president should be having is winding up, rather than trying to organize people to achieve a succession plan that is irrelevant to the future of the country. The future of the country lies where the next driver in the seat of the CEO of Kenya will want to drive the country.
As a leader of the nation, you don't think his opinion matters for his legacy or even continuation of the projects that he had started? Should he name a successor, from your view?
There is something in governance called perpetual succession. The principle of perpetual succession means that when a new president comes into office, he's automatically obligated to ensure that all programs of government, of the outgoing government, are completed. So we do not need the position of the outgoing president for us to insist that his successor must complete any project that was started, because they were all funded by public funds. So Prof, what he's doing is irrelevant, really, so to speak.
Okay. Prof, is it irrelevant what the president is trying to do?
I think Mheshimiwa Ulali has missed the point. I think the Azimio meeting is simply a meeting of the president, of politicians or individuals with a common mind and a common intention. And I think the president has an obligation to give direction to the country. That is an obligation he cannot run away from. And therefore, when he meets the principals from different political formations within Azimio, I think the president is simply saying that he has the interests of this nation, the best interests of this nation at heart. And I think the only way you can express your intention as a sitting head, remember he's still sitting until 9th August, until the transition is complete. And he remains the president of the Republic of Kenya. And he has an obligation to unify the country. He has an obligation to give the direction of the country. The president is doing the right thing. Let those with a common intention come together, join up, work together as strong political parties and forge ahead. The leadership of this country is crucial and cannot just be left. The president can't just sit back and say that he's winding down and that he has nothing to do with the transition. He has an interest in the transition. He must leave to us a peaceful and working nation.
But there are those who say that the people is invited, the lineup. We see Mr. Odinga, One Kenya Alliance, Principals, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, and Gideon Moi, who've been invited there, in itself is divisive because he's leaving out his own deputy.
I think the people he has invited must be people who intend to work towards a certain direction. I do not see any divisiveness because there will be and there are many political parties. And I do not think that working with any set of political leaders means excluding or means that the other political leaders are not desirable. No, it's simply an intention of a common thought or, a collectivity of thought of leaders who he believes can work together towards a certain outcome. And when we get there, that is the entire intention within the amendment set out at sections 2B and C of the political parties bill, essentially to have a collection of parties or a coalition of parties that will work together. And changing that framework of law of political parties will change the way that this country is governed. I think the president is simply looking toward that direction.
All right. Well, Wamatangi, should he be involved in this conversation around the succession? We had this conversation before, but it seems it's simply not going away.
Oh, first, good morning, Trevor.
Good morning.
You greeted everybody else on that side, and this side you never greeted us. So have we offended you?
There's no 2022. We don't have any issues with anyone.
And if we have, can we wish you a happy New Year first?
Happy New Year.
So that we can thaw any hard feelings if they were carried over from last year. And let me take the opportunity also to say good morning to our viewers, and also wish them a happy New Year, and certainly the best of this year, being an election year. So Trevor, my brief and the information that I have as a member of parliament is that the president has invited members of parliament. That is my brief. And the members of parliament who have been invited, the agenda remains with the president, because as a head of state, as a head of government, and definitely as one of the people who have interest in how this country moves, he's invited us to go and have dialogue. The agenda is not out. I can tell you that for sure. You know, what you see in the papers is speculation, in my view, on what the agenda will be. The meeting is, for certain, it is there. And if there are any other invitees other than members of parliament, I cannot tell you that I have that information myself. I expect that this being a year where the president is supposed to exit office, hand over power, have a summation of what he has done for the past 10 years. I believe it will be important for him to rope in members of parliament to see if they can be able to expedite quickly whatever remains undone within government. And so I believe that would be one of the issues that he would be wanting to address. I would be hard put to second guess whether he wants to float any agenda about political succession. It is the reality, definitely, that he will hand over power, come the next general election. How he will do that, I believe, is the way it is done constitutionally. Wherever we saw President Moi do it, we saw President Kibaki do it, and I believe that's the only script he can follow to hand over power. Up to now, from when the campaign mood started seizing us as a country, I have not had necessarily the president being pinpointedly specific that he is backing any one person. Of course, he has laid his ideals as saying this is how I would want the country to look like. That these are the best interests for the people of Kenya, at the end of the day. And so I believe that for the time being, bringing in a conclusive discussion that says that he's going to be saying that I support this or the one and I don't support the other one at this particular time, I do not believe that would be his agenda. Neither would it be in the best interest of the country. And because he's led this country for the last 9 years, this being the 10th, and I've not heard that even in any time when we've engaged. I would reserve my comments until then the meeting is over. If that agenda would come, supposing it was true, then we'll discuss it as it is. As members of parliament, remember, most of us are running for office a second time, and or rather, be it a second or third time. Like myself, I'll be running a third time. And I remember you asked me which office I'm running for.
Up until today,
and remember, but we agreed that this is the month of launch. You remember, we agreed here. Yes, so because this is the first show, let's first deal with the first show, then we'll agree on the day of the launch.
Okay. So, Zion, is this an important meeting or is it irrelevant and the train has already left the station?
Yeah, while the president has the prerogative to meet in citizens at the State House, I think a number of questions should be asked. The president is meeting a certain political group, minus his own deputy. And let's look at it, Trevor, this way. What has been happening at State House for the last 1 year? There has never been any cabinet meeting. And how has the president been running the country with the exclusion of the cabinet? Those of us drawn from the institutions of social justice who have seen struggle for constitutional order and rule of law and promotion of human rights looks at this as a bad precedent in terms of leadership of this country. Because we have got to demystify the offices of government and particularly State House away from driving of individual interest, particularly now when you're moving to a transition of 2022. The 2022 transition should be better than the transition of 2013 and 2002. And what I see, the body language of President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to be another professor like Moi, which really is not tenable at the moment. You look at the mood of Kenyans. The political maturity of Kenyans has come of age. And Kenyans will be looking at the table at the agenda that individuals contesting the various seats are bringing to the table. So to me, I would be very happy if the president is conducting consistent cabinet meetings to run and structure government. But these type of arrangements are not good in terms of good governance and the rule of law. If you're excluding your own deputy, a section of cabinet, and you're not conducting cabinet meetings, then that is a recipe for confusion. And we are not very far from coming from a PBI process. The PBI process was bungled because of exclusion of his own deputy, who was elected with him on the same ticket to run government business. So to me, I ask more critical questions like other Kenyans are asking. We want any occupant of State House, now and in future, to run the country within the Constitution. You don't choose whom to work with. Kenyans choose whom to work with you, and it is important the president upholds the rule of law and the Constitution. I would like to hear that cabinet is working and that there is a proper preparation for peaceful, democratic, verifiable election, and that the president will hand over peacefully to whoever Kenyans will elect, and that a president of Kenya cannot determine the next successor. In fact, Trevor, if you look at transitions in Kenya, anybody proposed from inside government will always be resisted from outside by Kenyans. Like what Moi did in 2002 by prodding Uhuru Kenyatta. And you remember, Kenyans elected Mwai Kibaki, despite the fact that he was indisposed. He wasn't even conscious during elections. But Kenyans, in their numbers, elected Kibaki, regardless of the position and the thinking of Moi. But in 2012, the Kibaki administration was quiet and kept off the transition. And it's not always very easy to impose leadership on Kenyans. Kenyans have come of age democratically to determine and choose any leader they want. And they will do it on 9th of August. So I hope it is